This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
You know, every once in a while we kind of have this theme that continues on through several episodes. It's kind of how a daily talk show works, especially when things are happening in big ways, and that would certainly include Alberta's teachers back at work, Alberta's students back in the class, and of course everybody else, I guess, kind of coming to their own opinions, arriving at a point where they're either cool with how the Alberta government got it done, invoking the notwithstanding clause and imposing a deal, or they're not cool. And in many cases, when you're not cool with how something is going down, you're talking to your friends about it, you're reading up more about it, you're thinking about it while you're walking your dog or while you're making dinner or while you're raking leaves or whatever it is you're doing. And we have been absolutely flooded with emails. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, we're on our live stream presented by California Closets. First of all, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here. Second of all, these are some of the emails that we've printed off considering reading during today's show. These aren't all the emails we've received, period. That would kill, John, I think at least 10 to 15 trees. If we do the math, we're doing our best to only print that which we believe we are going to save the trees. We are going to be as environmentally responsible as possible, politically and socially responsible as well, my friend, which is why we're going to try to get to as many of these today. A special edition of the show is we're going to hand the floor over to you. Sharan Kaur, by the way, is also going to join us in just a moment in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. But we're giving you the floor. Those of you that have just discovered the show, those of you that were back in the classroom, teachers giving us a firsthand report what that first day back was like after a 3-week strike, from parents, from those that are applying political pressure in their own communities. Albertans are rising up and speaking out en masse, not just about the fact that the teachers' strike has ended, but again, how the government did it and what it could mean for some folks, for example, that work as public servants, but that are nowhere near education. They're not even adjacent in their industry to education, but they see the notwithstanding clause. They see essentially, if you want to use supercharged but still accurate language, they see the stripping of teachers' rights, the suspension of their rights over at least the next 4 years of this agreement, this imposed collective agreement, as a threat to future negotiation when their union may go to bat with the province. So we heard from Alberta Labor leader, Alberta Federation of Labor President Gil McGowan about 18 hours ago, saying that all cards, basically he's just saying like all leverages will be considered. Everything is at our disposal. All cards that we could play are being considered, including a general strike. And that's what a lot of you have been asking about as well. A strike with, let's say hypothetically 300,000 public sector workers or maybe even more. There's that Common Front organization that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit. Yesterday we brought that up. It's 24 different unions umbrellaed under the Alberta Federation of Labor that are all meeting, that are all considering their next steps and speaking out against this government. So where does everything go from here? That's the big question. People want to know, is my way of life going to screech to a halt? Will the province be brought to its knees as the public sector, and not just public, by the way, as union members, let's say, public and private sector workers, consider their next move? It said yesterday, in support of the teachers, and many of you wrote in to say this isn't even necessarily about the teachers anymore. This is about union members. This is about collective bargaining. This is about labor relations between unions, workers, and the province. And if they can do this to teachers with this notwithstanding clause, then they can do it to anybody. In our short yesterday featuring our interview with the Education Minister, Dimitrios Nikolaitis, he basically said this is a unique circumstance. This is a remarkable circumstance. This is not something that would happen as a norm. This is not something that would happen on the regular. Let me safely say, based on the messages we're getting, that not everybody believes that.
Oh, is that really?
Isn't that strange?
That is strange.
We have had major response to that interview.
Nicoletus, why'd you treat us like this?
Johnny was coming up with his own theme music.
I was singing all yesterday. We've had Nick on so many times. Can I call him Nick? Is that his little?
I guess you just did.
I'll just call him the minister, the education minister. We've had him on so much that I kind of have Nicoletus on the brain. And look. It's obvious that he's a very calm and articulate guy, but there are people who are not believing most of the things that he's saying, and there are people who are calling him on points that he was making yesterday. How he was saying, we had to take this action for the children, but
no other choice.
Yeah, we've heard him say in other interviews and other snippets that there were other options, but that this was the best option for the kids in the immediate action to get them back into school. So at one point he says there are no other options. Then he says there were.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
there was this moment in the show yesterday, and maybe on reflection. Actually, let me just give you guys the real goods here. No, hang on a second. I'll throw this.
I know what you're
going to say.
Just do it.
When he said last night.
Yeah.
Last night, that part, and then he talked about Saskatchewan, and then I jumped on the Saskatchewan comparison, and I'll tell this story to Sharon. This will be a good intro into our feature interview. So when we get to that, I'll get to that, because I have an air check. We call it in our industry. Whatever you guys have in your industry, like a quality check or a review, a performance review. I get my own air checks at home every once in a while. From my soulmate and my life partner, who was a journalist and a radio and television presenter for many, many years. And she gave me her own evaluation of that interview.
Spoke for itself that I noticed that too when he said it. I said, you just started reviewing this last night?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you have been reviewing it for months?
Nobody believes that. So basically the quote
I don't think.
He basically was like, we're talking about class cap sizes. Yeah. Welcome Boomshanker X, by the way, is a real deal member, upgrading their YouTube membership, the channel membership right now. Thanks for that. We appreciate it. Access to certain perks and benefits. So he goes, last night I said, class cap sizes have worked in other Canadian provinces. It seems like they're a non-starter in Alberta. Why not in Alberta? And he goes, he goes, last night I was up learning about that, and I realized, that like Saskatchewan doesn't have them and this, that, and the other. And then I kind of jump back and I go, Saskatchewan, that's not an apt comparison. Saskatchewan's not grappling with any of the challenges that Alberta's grappling with, population explosion, schools bursting at the seams, maybe with some exceptions. But Regina and Saskatoon aren't growing at 100,000 citizens a year, right? So we kind of push back on that. And then I get home and my wife says to me, she goes, do you believe that he was up last night, like the night before the interview, learning for the very first time about class cap sizes in other provinces? And I go, well, nobody believes that.
No.
And she goes, well, then why didn't you dig in on that? And I go, because I dug in on the Saskatchewan piece, and she wasn't so convinced.
I think I think you could have dug in on it, but when he said it, I'm like, that must mean that he was like delving deeper into like maybe comparisons to other provinces or the states. He definitely didn't just look at Alberta sizes and comparatively, and what they are compared to private schools, and in each different section of Edmonton. I'm sure they're bigger in some areas where there's denser population. I'm sure he's looked at all of that stuff.
We heard from Evan Lee in our recent show. That's October 29th. Check it out. That's the grade 12 student that had his mic cut at the Alberta Next Town Hall. It's kind of funny. I mentioned to some people yesterday, it was like Evan Lee, and they're like, kind of looked at me like, and I go, the kid who got his mic cut? And they're like, the kid his parents should have spanked him? I'm like, everybody knows who he is, right? A household name. And he told us that at Sir Winston Churchill in high school, at his high school, he says that he's seen class sizes 50 or 60 people. Yeah. Like, it's bonkers.
So I was under the assumption that like 30 to 40 was too big, but I literally talked to a friend of mine who's a teacher yesterday, and she said, one of my classes is 47 kids. And I said, I had no idea it was that high. And if we get the influx of people that we already know are here and that are still coming to Edmonton, Calgary, we know, like Jeremy Farkas was talking about the influx of people coming to Calgary because it's so beautiful. Hi, Calgary. We love you.
Shout out, Calgary.
But not your team, the Flames.
More YouTube views for Real Talk out of Calgary than Edmonton last month, by the way.
There you go, because, we got Farkas and Farkas fans and people who want to know about the mayoral race. But what I'm saying is, if it's 47 now for a few classes, it's going to be 47 for a bunch in 6, 12, 2 years. So the fact that yesterday, I mean, we literally heard, I think we knew this when it happened, though, that there's no bargaining until 2028. So there's going to be no cap on class sizes for another 2 years.
And was pointed out, the teachers are prohibited from striking again within that 4-year window.
There's no negotiations.
That was Real Talker Scarlett that put that on our radar yesterday, in time for us to put that in front of the minister. So there's obviously a ton going on. Again, Real Talkers, we're giving you the floor today. I actually love shows like this where we're just like, you said this and you said this and you said this, because everyone's getting a sense these are real people, real email addresses, and it's giving us a general sense of where people's heads are at. Like, Plain Power, for example, says there's a ton of opinions on this, guys. In our live chat, powered by Park Power, says, I ask, says Plain Power, is it acceptable that governments override citizens' rights at any time whatsoever?
I mean,
I don't question about the notwithstanding clause.
I don't like it, and I don't see how anyone on any side. There could be freedom convoyers, separatists, leftists, whoever you are. Like, nobody wants to see rights suppressed. Nobody wants to see even if you're for unions or not, seeing them blown up or attempted to blown up is just like it's a scary thought.
What about in the big freedom province, the strong and free province,
sure.
right? Corradetti Motorsports says the audacity of the government is amazing, especially after these crybabies put on a show during the COVID years and lockdowns. The hypocrisy is a core value of conservatives in Canada these days. Kenzie says stripping of children's rights has never been a concern, so much for, quote, doing it for the children. Some of you as well, you're not necessarily convinced that, Alberta's public workers, let's say Alberta's union workers, a union collective, we'll say, generally speaking, will flex muscle and will do what it can, hundreds of thousands of workers, hypothetically, to bring this province to its knees. Emily says Gil McGowan's roar kind of turned into a bit of a whimper. Explorer Hollis says, I watched Gil's speech and I was really disappointed. He comes across to me as someone trying to use the situation to further his own political career. I support the workers, says Hollis. It was disappointing. So not everybody believes it, that this is going to play out. And I guess everyone's just kind of waiting to see. We were getting a bunch of messages. Cactus Sheriff says Gil lost some credibility, losing the NDP leadership race. The past few days haven't helped at all. So is it fair to say that among Real Talkers, generally speaking in the live chat right now, they're not convinced that big labor is going to step up and flex muscle here? Keep the comments rolling. We'll get to what you have to say live. We're going to get to a whole bunch of these emails, and we're also going to bring in Sharan Kaur in just a moment. Before we do, I want to let you know that this episode of Real Talk is presented by our friends at RapidX Financial. Real Talk, real Bitcoin. Check out rapidxfinancial.com. That's where you'll see 3 easy ways to buy and sell crypto across Canada. Online with Interac eTransfer, or at their trusted ATMs across Canada, or fully guided over the counter, on the phone or in person, however you like it. If you're an individual that's maybe just getting started, or maybe you're a corporation that's growing its Bitcoin stash to preserve assets, RapidX is there with real local people ready to help at every step. There's absolutely no bots. There's no hidden fees, just genuine support from a Canadian team that cares about your financial journey. Go get crypto your way, anytime, anywhere, with RapidX Financial. Again, check them out online at rapidxfinancial.com. Proudly made in Alberta, Canadian owned and trust backed. Let them get you started today at rapidxfinancial.com.
Yeah, something yesterday I just wanted to mention also. It was kind of concerning when Nick he kind of was talking about class complexity being the issue.
You're talking about Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides. Okay, just to be clear. Just so we keep getting these interviews.
I shouldn't call him Nick. The minister was saying, he was talking about how complexity was the bigger issue than the actual size of the class.
Yeah.
And it just kind of didn't sit with me well, because obviously if a class is bigger, the complexity is going to be more intense, right? Like if you have 25 kids and 3 or 4 of them have, mental health issues, or they need specific ways of being dealt with, and then you increase that to 45, 46, 47, you're going to have twice as many, right? You're going to have 7 or 8 kids, right? So it didn't really make sense how he said, we need to address the complexity. I'm like, well, how can you address complexity if you keep adding students? It just gets more complex.
Especially if you look at the trends of why these classrooms are becoming more complex, right? Including an influx of new Canadians. He talked about this yesterday. This isn't a big shot at new Canadians. It's not overarching commentary on immigration, though we do need to have room for that, and the Carney government has addressed that early in its mandate. But you're also talking about obvious factors like, new English language learners that are entering the classroom. That's a big job for a teacher, especially without an EA. Mariah in our live chat says they just looked into how other people manage complexity as well. This has been 18 months of negotiations. How do you just look into how other provinces are managing it? I don't believe that for a second. I don't know if he was trying to be candid or what. I don't believe that for a second. It's unbelievable. And we see a lot of things that are unbelievable that end up being believable, but this one not. Who was it? Was it Oscar Wilde that said, of course, truth is stranger than fiction because at least fiction has to make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Oscar Wilde, but it's a great quote. How about this from Les, who says the teacher strike was the catalyst that started to make everybody question the treatment of our doctors, nurses, seniors, people with disabilities, LGBTQ community, and basic human rights and common decency. That from Les. I will say this, too. We love emails like this one from Roger. I love Roger with a D. I've always thought that's a beautiful way to spell Roger. Writes in, get this, Johnny. Scrolling through YouTube yesterday, says Roger, and stumbled upon your show. So refreshing to hear the unfiltered truth coming out. This government has to go. Thomas Lukaszuk needs to start something down the middle path, not left or right, just a common sense provincial political party in time for the next election. Interesting. We asked Thomas about whether or not he had aims or a goal of starting up a new political party, resurrecting his own political career. He was coy about it. I've learned that you never believe a former or recovering politician when they say they're never going to get back into politics.
You make it sound like it's an addiction.
Well, I don't believe...
I'm a recovering politician.
It is, because the last time, as we say hello to Sharan Kaur, one of our absolute favorites, nationally renowned political commentator, former senior staffer with Canada's Minister of Finance, and of course a brilliant strategist. The most notable moment I've ever had, and I've told the story on the show before, 2019, like 3 a.m, after the federal election, the Liberals win. The Global panel I was sitting on wraps, and we're headed back from the Global studio to our hotel. And we're in a taxi with now Senator Charles Adler sitting shotgun, and beside me in the back seat, former Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall, and at that time, former Wild Rose Party leader Danielle Smith. And this cab, I wish it was like one of those cash cab episodes, you know what I mean, where there was like cameras everywhere, because we were having a robust conversation, and it came up in the cab at like 2:33 in the morning. I think it may have been Brad Wall that asked it to Danielle. This is 2019. When are you getting back into politics? And she said, and she laughs and she goes, "You guys know I'm unelectable. This was election night 20." She goes, "I'm unelectable." She's laughing. She says, "I think my political career might be done." Yet here you and I are in 2025 talking about the moves that she's making as Alberta Premier. Do you ever believe a recovering politician when they say they're done for good?
Never. You can never. Once a politician has a bite, they never want to give it up, and they tend to come back. But listen, people can have second comings all the time. So I remember back in the day when Danielle Smith ran for the first time I would say, I think this is after... What was it? I think it was when she joined Prentice's team, and it was like
That's
all
right,
the
floor
around
crossing,
that. And
yeah.
so look at how far we've come. Life is many days.
Yeah.
Everyone has a second chance, I would say.
Many days. It's great to see your face again, appearing in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, and we're going to spend the lion's share of this episode during our time with you and after the fact as well, just reading. Like, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of emails from Albertans from all different walks of life, all different professions, all different ages, all different positions on education, talking about teachers and students heading back to the class. But bigger picture, the move that the Alberta government pulled to make it happen, invoking the notwithstanding clause. There's a lot of interesting parallels here to Ontario, or at least some comparisons. Ontario does education a little bit differently, but are people in downtown Toronto, are people in Ottawa, wherever your work is taking you this week, talking about what's happening in Alberta? Has the story landed out there?
No, honestly, and this is just like not that I don't watch the news. It was actually more newsy to me than it would have been otherwise. It's not something people are talking about out here, and there's just so much going on. So when I saw your note, I was like, let me read into this a little bit. But yeah, it's not front of mind for anyone. Listen, the notwithstanding discussion has been something that kind of has poked around in circles for quite some time. But not on anyone's radar out here for the most part.
Well, Ontario's popped up a couple of times in our conversations. As we do, we'll compare different Canadian provinces and how they're doing education or how they're doing healthcare. The Minister of Education, Nicolita, speaking with us yesterday on class size caps, because this, I don't know, to at least the casual observer, this appears to be where negotiations really broke down between the province and the teachers on class size caps and resources for complex classrooms. It seems to be acknowledged by the teachers that this wasn't about salary as much as it was about class size caps. So the minister points out to us yesterday, Saskatchewan doesn't have them. It seems to be working fine. BC does. Ontario does. And there's also been a big conversation about private school funding. Ontario, probably, I would say, respectfully, the most prominent province, or certainly the most populated province, that provides 0% funding for private schools. Has that been a reason for contention? Has that been a recurring debate in Ontario? Do you have, for example, private school parents that have been demanding more of their tax dollars go to where their children are attending school?
No, honestly, at least, and maybe in some circles, I have a lot of people in my network and my group friends and all that who have kids who are both in public and private school, and it's never been a topic of discussion. I think the public education system is constantly a topic of discussion out here. The big issue right now is the role of trustees, for example, in schools. But I've never, and quite frankly, I personally believe government funds should not go to private schools. I have no issue with private schools if parents want to spend their money to put their kids in a different school system for whatever reason. I think that's totally acceptable. There's pros and cons to it, and I know a lot of people who put their kids in private school and have never asked for public money to go into it, but usually they either put them in private school for a number of reasons, and some of them put them in private school because they think that the ratio amongst teacher to student is better, or it's just a better learning opportunity for them, a different environment. But you're not going to see people marching in parades out here or having conversations about demanding government to put the money into private schools. I think everyone wants to see our public system kind of fixed. There's a lot of issues in our public system that need to be adjusted, and I think that's where the focus generally is out here.
I'll state the obvious here, but I think for Alberta too, it's the fact that private and independent schools have received the highest percentage of funding in the country, 70%. For decades. The fact that Alberta has sort of held this tradition, or that this has been kind of a pillar of how Alberta funds education since the province, since inception, basically, since 1905, is a big deal, right? Like, it's not like this was a change that government made, after Rachel Notley lost to Jason Kenney in 2019, or after government changed hands at any point. Once you've been doing something some way literally forever, makes it a whole lot different to change. And of course, people start to bristle when you start coming after some of the benefits that they have enjoyed, in particular where their tax dollars are involved,
Yeah. And I think, listen, when you try to take something away from someone, it's a lot harder. But I guess a rational argument I would make to parents in Alberta who have an issue with it is that if you have the means to put your kids in private school, it's fair to say that you pay taxes and you want those taxes to be used for that. But there's a lot of people who pay taxes and their kids don't go to private school. I personally don't think tax dollars should be going to private school. I think private schools do completely fine based on how they operate. And I think maybe this is just a bit of a wake-up call for people in Alberta that this is generally not how one should do it. So I actually think it's quite reasonable to claw back on that.
Yeah, it's like the bigger conversation I think is happening now as well is just how the province is approaching labor negotiations as well, right? Like, we've got a bunch of people in our chat right now, and they don't mean disrespect to teachers. But they're basically saying that this isn't about the teachers anymore, or this isn't just about the teachers. This is about, union workers across the province, many of them who are either negotiating agreements right now or who will soon be negotiating agreements, seeing how the UCP managed this, seeing not only Danielle Smith's willingness to invoke the notwithstanding clause, but her promise, and then actual delivery on invoking that notwithstanding clause. And of course, a lot of people are starting to wonder what that could mean for hundreds of thousands of workers across the province. I mean, worst case scenario, this could play out in a way where all of a sudden Alberta is the focal point of the country, and the headline reads, worker rights stripped. right? Not exactly the type of message you're wanting to send to the rest of the country when you've got that Alberta is calling campaign, and you've got your cities booming, and you're trying to draw more people here to deal with some of that, some of the employment opportunities and some of the economic potential that this government insists exists.
Yeah, and this is where I struggle when it comes to strikes and listen, I strongly believe that workers have a right to negotiate and do all of their everything that they get within the union. But I also have a bit of a bee in my bonnet around how unions operate. I know they're going to say this is not about teachers, but it always is, right? If the union is meant to be there to represent those teachers, right? So if they're trying to use this as a tactic to push back on the notwithstanding, fair, fine, have that conversation. This is a bit of an odd place to use the notwithstanding. I think we're starting to see premiers use it in ways that it might make people uncomfortable, but then it's kind of like, how low is the bar to use it? Now, strikes are not great. No family likes them, no parent likes them. And I think what they're doing is kind of trying to appease the voters, right? Quite frankly, I don't think that the union is top of mind necessarily for Danielle Smith and her government. And I think that's why she's using this and putting it in place. But there's got to be a balance. We're just, for too long now, I think a lot of unions have utilized the ability to strike in ways that just truly impact Canadians. And I think that is their right. That is the purpose of them being able to do that. But there's got to be a balance around inconvenience for people and kind of what they want. If this is not about the teachers and it's about class sizes, can we not have these discussions in a way where they don't have to strike, or that we don't have to use a notwithstanding clause? But we just generally never tend to get to those places where they're constructive because either side is not willing to give.
Yeah, and I mean that idea of the notwithstanding clause being normalized, when you look at that as once you use it once, it becomes easier to use it, and once you use it in one labor negotiation, it becomes easier. And if it is generally palatable to the public, that it was invoked, and by that I mean not weeks and weeks of sustained demonstrations outside the legislature or what have you, then what would stop a government from continuing to going back to the well? Like, what do checks and balances look like?
Well, there is none right now, right? Like there's not really any. And like, what's the next step? We've seen other provinces who have used a notwithstanding clause, and people have taken it to the Supreme Court and all of that. And we're seeing it in different ways, shapes, and forms, whether it's in Alberta or whether it's in Quebec or wherever else. So this is a hard one. Like, what is the bar? What do we set? Like, what are we willing to use it for? Like, we don't have like a glossary that says you can use notwithstanding for this, but you can't use it for that. It's basically up to the province's discretion to use it when they want to use it. And I think that's a gray area. And I think it's becoming an even more gray area the more frequently people are willing to use it. And I don't think there's one right answer to it. I don't think the feds are going to come in place and say, okay, well, you can only use it for X, Y, and Z. It's just going to cause outroar. So it's like you're having people from all spectrums kind of not loving the use of the notwithstanding clause. And I think governments across the board here in Canada have to figure out what is it, like, where are we comfortable using it, where we're not infringing on people's rights or their ability to negotiate, but at the same time without causing like mass harm to people and families.
Yeah, so I guess people will say, well, there's that the sunset clause. Basically, you've got like the 5-year limit on it, right? And I guess the government's got to there would be some sort of legislative transparency. The government's got to note that it's using it. In this case, I think it was almost like I said earlier, with the premier promising to do it, or at least alluding to the fact that she was going to do it. There was almost some crowing, like it was almost invoked with pride. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which has not always been the case.
Right? It's not meant to be a threat, but it's kind of like a threat. It's like, figure it out, guys, or we're going to use this. And once we use that, you have no flexibility or nothing to negotiate on. So, like, listen, it's a tactic that is used. It's heavy-handed. If I was premier and I needed to use it, it's probably easier to say, yeah, you probably would if you have to. But I think this is a tactic for her to say, if you guys don't get together and come to a solution, we're going to force you into a solution. And sometimes you've got to do it, but it's a fine line.
Yeah. Hey, can we keep you 10 more minutes? I want to talk to you about federal budget. We're hanging out with Sharan Kaur in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Sharon's been in the office, a senior staffer to former federal finance minister Bill Morneau. She's seen it on the inside. She's seen how it all comes together. This government has a challenge on its hands as a minority government to get that budget passed. What are the chances it will? What are the chances it won't? What are the implications? What are we keeping an eye out for? That from Sharan Kaur in just a moment. Wanted to let you know, John, this dapper coat I'm debuting today. Borleone, this new coat I'm wearing today. I love it. I just picked it up from our friends at The Helm. You can check them out online at thehelmclothing.com. I always recommend if you're anywhere in the Metro Edmonton region, you got to check out their 3-story retail experience because it will blow your mind. A buddy of mine with very discerning taste went to check out The Helm the other day for the first time. Shout out to him. And he says to me, this is like the ultimate comment anywhere in Western Canada. He said, that store's not even great for Edmonton. That store's not even great for Canada. He said, The Helm would be incredible in the heart of Europe. I said, say no more. I'm stealing that for the next time I talk about The Helm. Custom and luxury casual wear for men right in the heart of Edmonton's downtown. Or you can shop them online at thehelmclothing.com. If you do, and if you are shopping online at thehelmclothing.com, the promo code Real Talk will save you 10% on everything. No questions asked. How's that for a carrot in front of you? 10% off at thehelmclothing.com with the promo code Real Talk. Our friends at Edify Edmonton are getting set for another edition of their Top 40 Under 40. This recognizing the movers and shakers of the Metro Edmonton region that have not yet hit that over the hill mark. It's an annual event you do not want to miss. A wonderful social event. You're going to be inspired, I guarantee it, and you can get your tickets for Wednesday, November 19th at the Winspear Center in downtown Edmonton by visiting edifyedmonton.com. That's Top 40, Wednesday, November 19th. Tickets at edifyedmonton.com. You know, Peace Hills Insurance does things a little bit differently. They are aware that more and more Canadians have been paying higher rates for insurance, which means it's a perfect time to check them out, peacehillsinsurance.com, and realize very quickly why they do and how they do things differently with policies that'll work for you. They serve all of Western Canada with home, auto, and business products, and they're owned, Peace Hills Insurance is, by the Samson Cree Nation, which means that their mission through Wakotowin, this Cree word that represents the interconnectedness of all beings, is to be a respected national insurer that provides creative and responsive solutions, a unique insurance company that truly cares. That means they give back to communities. It means that their employees participate in their philanthropy, in their volunteer service. Oh, and of course, policyholders are offered compassionate and dedicated service, starting with a human being answering the phone when you call. Peace Hills Insurance, a variety of different products, personal property, auto, business, and even farm insurance. You can connect with them today at peacehillsinsurance.com. And we're so proud to have Park Power sponsoring our Real Talk live chat. Powered by Park Power, that's where important conversations happen. If you check out parkpower.ca/realtalk, you'll find exclusive savings on internet, electricity, and natural gas, including bundling services that could save you $150, $150 off your very first bill. Park Power is your friendly local utilities provider that gives a portion of its proceeds, its profits, back to Alberta's nonprofits. We absolutely love that. We're so proud to partner with the team at parkpower.ca. Sharan Kaur, our guest, in our feature interview today, presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Everybody's going to, be paying attention come budget time to what the federal government's priorities are, most particularly when it's a new government, when it's a new prime minister. And Mark Carney's got the same challenge on his hands that his predecessor did, Justin Trudeau, in that he has a minority government, and he's going to need to find support outside his party for this budget to pass. You've been part of this process before, Sharan. Where's your focus at right now, or what are some of the key storylines that you're following?
I personally would really like to see where they're going to be making their reductions. And this is probably an unpopular opinion for many people, but I do think we've been hearing the Prime Minister and his team out there talking about cost savings and kind of streamlining government funds. And I do personally think that the public service has gone way too big on a number of fronts, a lot specifically post-COVID. But even from a spending perspective, I think every year new programs are put into place. And then over time, those programs are not always useful or relevant to the time. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to streamline to kind of better utilize funds in governments, taxpayer dollars, what programs are going, what programs are coming, our defense spending, and kind of to see what a Mark Carney budget looks like. And I think we're in this weird period of time where we've got this massive elephant in the room known as Donald Trump, who just kind of keeps throwing grenades our ways, left, right, and center. And it's going to be interesting to see what type of nation building projects and the whole concept of sovereignty is going to be incorporated into our budget.
November 4th is when this budget will be released. You, in a previous appearance on this program, gave us the drill, baby, drill. And you talked about your own professional career, including involvement and expertise in oil and gas and Canada's energy sector. The idea of nation-building projects, of course, and I think Danielle Smith is hoping that the entire country knows that Alberta's looking for a new pipeline, in particular, I think, to the West Coast. And it's something that Mark Carney doesn't seem to immediately have poo-pooed. He didn't say no out of the gates, but there's some cynicism, or at least let me say there's some hesitation that the rest of Canada wants to see this, including British Columbians. When it comes to these nation-building projects, the federal government has a chance to extend an olive branch to Alberta, but not without expending some political capital, maybe in Quebec, maybe in BC, the rest of Canada, let's say, which are some pretty important provinces, pretty important jurisdictions there for this minority government. Can you see this being one of them? This new pipeline is a nation-building project. In your mind, does it qualify?
Listen, I think Danielle Smith did something really smart with this. It's really hard to find a company that wants to be a proponent to build anything. And like we've talked about this, I worked for TC Energy when we tried to build Energy East across Canada and Keystone down to the US. And I can tell you, going from province to province for Energy East, it was shocking to me how much one province can impact the overall need for something that the entire country needs. Like in the case of Energy East, Quebec was extremely difficult and we had to go through Quebec. So I think what Danielle Smith has done here is she said, okay, well, you said nation building projects, we'll back it up. It's not like they're backing it up with billions of dollars or even hundreds of millions. But she's kind of calling the federal government's bluff on this and say, hey, we're going to back it. I think it's 15 million. And then we're going to find more or whatever, find another proponent. And to have BC kind of come in and have EV just kind of poo-poo it right away. It's kind of the first cracks that we're seeing amongst this whole, we need to be more domestically reliant. And quite frankly, I don't know if we're ever going to get past this internal bind of one province wanting it versus the other. We have to think about things as what's good for the whole country, not just one province. And building our infrastructure and getting our resources to market helps the entire country. So we're going to need BC to give a little bit. We're going to need other provinces to give a little bit. I can't see a world in which everyone is going to be aligned. And that's where the federal government and the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy have to come in and say, what mechanisms do we have to override that we're going to do this? Or how can we make sure that it's done in a way that the local communities are respected? But I'm not 100% sold. I've got a lot of PTSD from trying to get projects built across this country. I personally would love to see it, though.
Do you, I remember, who was it? I don't want to say the wrong person. It may have been Jason Kenney. I remember where I was when I read the quote. I was actually hosting an event with a bunch of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and I believe that Jason Kenney had said something along. Someone will fact check me for sure. Something along the lines of you couldn't get it was when the railroads were being blocked at different spots across central and western Canada. And obviously it gets the nation's attention. It kind of, I think, more than the average person would realize, really can grind the economy to a halt. I don't think most people realize how important the railway is to Canada's economy and to keeping it moving. But I think it was Kenny that said something along the lines of you could never get a railroad built across Canada, present day. And it had landed with some people, of course, because there were some implications, or sort of alluding to the idea that that consultation, for example, with First Nations probably wouldn't allow it, or you wouldn't have pardon me invoking slave labor basically to build it. You wouldn't be burying people by the side of the tracks. Canada's got some bruises and scars around that for sure, as do many nations through that building and learning and developing process. I don't mean to be dismissive about it, but the idea that you couldn't build something, a national energy corridor, you couldn't actually build something like that across Canada present day. Would the approval and ultimately the construction of a new pipeline in 2026, 2027 send a message, do you think, to international investors? Would it have that sort of open for business sign hanging off Canada's doorknob?
If we can get there, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of countries who are looking at, so Canada's got a whole bunch of minerals. It's got a whole bunch of natural resources. You can't build anything, but if they're changing the environment, maybe they can. And I think it will get attention. I think if it was Kenny who said that, it's kind of right. You can't build anything because we've we've overcomplicated the consultation process. I can tell you, like, there's some really valid opinions that come through during the consultation process, but there's also a lot of flaws in it. Like, I would see the same activist groups moving from province to province, providing their input into these consultations, and that's not reflective of those communities. I think we have to be very specific about making sure that the communities these projects go through are benefiting, and so they can see the economic benefit to them and their communities, not just like a land survey fee, but I'm talking like consequential funds pumped into those communities long term, because when they see the overall success, it's kind of how you get people together. I just think we haven't done a good enough job at that. We haven't done a good enough job at showing certain communities, whether it's First Nations or local communities, that listen, we're going to be building some sort of infrastructure through your backyard, but you're a partner, and here's the economic return to your community, and here's how we can help you guys grow.
Yeah, I might be combining two memories into one, because a quick Google search here shows that on the 31st of March, so just ahead of the federal election, Pierre Poilievre on his Facebook, and I'm sure on all social media platforms, posted a video with a bust of Sir John A. Macdonald behind him, asking, could we even build the Canadian Pacific Railway today? Says Conservatives will honor the legacy of Sir John A. Macdonald and unite our country with a Canada First national energy corridor so we can stand on our own 2 feet for a change. Showing, by the way, Minister Guilbeault, former Minister Guilbeault, in prison garb after being arrested for a Greenpeace climate stunt, not technically prison garb, but mimicking it. So maybe that's it. Sharan, Poilievre does have a play here, obviously, and I've seen some suggesting that the Conservatives could be trying to force a Christmas time election if this budget were to fall. It was some interesting comments. Defense Minister David McGuinty says he has, quote, every confidence that the Liberals will be able to pass budget despite minority government status. Meantime, Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon says he is worried the budget might not win enough votes, and he did accuse the Conservative leader, the leader of the official opposition, of pushing for a Christmas election. What's Pierre Poilievre's play here, and how do you think it all winds up?
Listen, it's all theatrics to a certain extent. It's funny that like the Liberals have kind of started out by going by Minister McKinnon, who said, like, basically saying it's in your hands now. And I think they're just trying to pre-position the narrative. So if an election is called, it's because of Conservatives. And I think the Conservatives can't afford an election either right now. Like, nobody wants an election so soon. Pierre Poilievre is not doing as stellar with the public as he was before. And that being said, it's a risk everyone will take. Do I think there'll be an election at Christmas? No, I think we're all posturing right now. But it's also like he's saying that he's doing this to get what he wants in the budget. Like, let's just be clear. The official opposition is never going to be happy with what's in the budget. It's just a matter of where can they make concessions? And I think there'll be some strategic ways where people will just randomly not be in the House when it needs to be voted on, so it passes. But this, to me, is all theatrics and just some posturing taking place.
I got to ask you this before we thank you for your time. I don't know if you just were in the mood to kick a hornet's nest. I love it. I love the strategy. But as our Toronto Blue Jays were in the midst, I love this, of taking a 3-2 lead in the World Series, one win away from Canada's third World Series title. There you have Harry and Meghan pictured wearing their Dodgers caps.
I'm showing, this was game 4.
You know, was this game 4?
Yeah,
okay, this is game 4.
Tuesday.
Okay, so but it's still a Jays win, though. Yeah, so there you go. Thanks for the fact check. Game 4, there they are, Harry and Meghan in their Dodgers caps. The Major League official MLB account pretty excited about it. Royalty in the front row for the World Series. And then in swoops Sharan Kaur. Is now a good time, you ask, to talk about why we still have a monarchy? I always love this stuff. What do you have against the monarchy? Why do you want to see it gone?
I was trying to be so cheeky, and Jesus, I triggered the basement trolls who are in my inbox who think I was actually being like I was trying to be funny, guys. Like, we have Meghan Markle, who spent a lot of time in Toronto filming Suits, and then we've got Prince Harry, and like, listen, Canada's a country of a monarchy. We gave them safe haven to hide out in BC. Like, this was me joking, because come on, guys, where's your Canadian pride here? You're kind of de facto one of us. And oh my God, I triggered everyone online who was like, couldn't tell that I was trying to be funny. And I should probably like half of my tweets are funny, but like, come on, guys, where's your Blue Jays hat?
Oh, and it was amazing because people start calling you a hypocrite and saying that you haven't gone off on anybody. They start to, like, all of a sudden Prince Andrew starts, Jeffrey Epstein starts.
Like Epstein is in there, and I'm like, guys, can you not take a joke? I was trying to be funny. Jesus.
Oh,
Christ.
and I was just sitting at home, just scrolling like I'm doing right now, just laughing a lot. The Saudi monarchy didn't seem to bother you, Sharon. That's another good one.
I've been getting a lot of that. They're like, she's paid by the Saudis. No, guys, I'm not, but like, did live there. You ain't me.
Unbelievable. Hey, we love every single time you join us. We always appreciate your insights. Thanks for doing this, Sharon, and we'll look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, you got it. You can find Sharon, of course, find her online at Ms. Sharan Kaur, and this conversation made possible by incredible Real Talk sponsors like our friends at Friesen Brothers. We'll get to your responses on what Sharon had to say there. Plus, we're going to go back to our email inbox and give you the floor today, Real Talkers. That's what matters. That's the biggest one right now, at least in our neck of the woods. That's what people are talking about, this teacher's strike, the notwithstanding clause, the bigger labor picture. Our friends at Friesen Brothers want to remind you that coming up November 1st, your next chance to save 15% on grocery purchases of $75 or more. They got 16 different Alberta locations. This is a great chance to fill your family's freezer, to top up on your produce, to get the monthly groceries you need, and also keep more cash in your pocket. Anybody using cash anymore at grocery stores?
No, it doesn't exist anymore.
To leave more digital credits in your online banking, John, that's what you'll do. Well, you'll save 15%. Friesen Brothers celebrating 70 years this year. Absolutely incredible. What a legacy. Proudly Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Our friends at Solar by Kubi reminding you that just because the leaves are down, just because we're bracing for winter, it doesn't mean that their team all goes on vacation. No. They're hard at work behind the scenes doing the engineering on upcoming solar installations, getting all the paperwork done, applying for grants where appropriate, where available, saving you money and getting you set up to go green, whether it's your home, your business, your farm, your office tower. Kubi does it all. Look at their website, kubi.ca, Kuby.ca. I love that picture we're showing you now. The Edmonton Convention Center. That whole thing is not technically one big. It's a whole bunch of solar panels. The whole front facing onto the North Saskatchewan River, installed by our friends at Kubi. You can get a free solar quote today at Kuby.ca. That's Kuby.ca. And John, we also want to just shout out our friends at Epcor that keep us powered and well-watered every single day. I'm showing you here right now this glass of the Sask that we have, and we're proud to let you know, Real Talkers, that every in-studio guest that joins us on Real Talk is offered a glass of the Sask. No fancy bottled water here because there's absolutely no need. You can actually check out the Glass of the Sask campaign online. This is something that Epcor is really proud of and should be really proud of. The North Saskatchewan River in the heart of Alberta's capital city, shaping Edmonton, connecting us to everything local. Edmonton's tap water is literally award-winning. Literally wins taste and quality awards around the world. You can learn more again at epcor.com. Check out the Glass of the Sask campaign. Real Talk, proudly serving glasses of the Sask to all of our in-studio guests, made by Epcor.
Glasses of the Sask.
You need your own. You know what we should do?
You know what happened
today? If you
today?
can keep that voice
The
going like that, we can do a
machine.
children's show.
The coffee machine
and we'll
was
make
fixed.
millions.
And I had a double.
You didn't know what to do with you. We have like a community coffee machine out in our common area, and you didn't know what to do with yourself
That's
when
when-
that thing went on the fritz.
That's when you know you're getting over the hill. When you come in, the coffee machine's broken, and it literally, like, you ask yourself for a moment, you're like,
Yeah.
will I survive today? And then you realize, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm middle-aged.
Well, I asked you, what the hell is wrong with you yesterday? I'm just joking. Everything was totally fine. Denise says, hey, listen, you win an election by 3 votes or you win by a landslide. You still must govern for all, not just your donors. And he's absolutely not wrong as we return our attention to what's happening in Alberta right now. And a lot of you are sort of sharing your firsthand perspectives on exactly what the reality is, not just in classrooms right now, but for taxpayers, for political observers, for union members across the province. D writes into the show asking to remain anonymous, but as we do ask, sent from a credible email that supports that they are who they say they are. This is a principal of a school somewhere in Alberta. D says, I want to thank Real Talk for the support of teachers. I've been a principal in a major Alberta city for 10 years, 3 in elementary, 7 in high school, and this is my 28th year as a teacher, having started in 1997. I've been the principal of the same school since September 2019, so basically through COVID until today. And coming to work, they sent this to us last night, 9 o'clock p.m., so they're talking about the first day back at school. It says, coming into work today, the first day back, was the most difficult day I have ever had as a teacher and an administrator. Okay, so that's 28 years in education. That was the toughest day. He says, I have an incredible staff. I've never seen them look like this before. Their eyes were hollow. John, they lacked life. Teachers feel like they've been hit by a sledgehammer. Says it felt like a funeral. The mood in the school was somber, and the students could tell. Many students wore red. Teachers reported to me that the students were genuine in asking how they were doing. Students care for their teachers, says Dee. And word has it that students from 41 high schools in Alberta have planned a walkout to take place today, the day we're talking on October 30th. Says the actions of the government have been demoralizing and their rhetoric is disingenuous at best. Al Pacino in his great speech in Ascent of a Woman. What a movie, by the way. Remember? Hoo-wah. 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 Said there's no prosthetic for an amputated spirit. With cruel intention and malice in their hearts, the government systematically amputated the spirit of more than 50,000 teachers, educators who have taught and continue to teach in the worst conditions I've seen in my career, says this principal of 10 years, educator for 28 years. I'm not certain how long it'll take for my colleagues in Alberta to just feel okay. Says, I want to thank you for having the Minister of Education on the show on the 29th of October. I was watching you live during the strike. I could only catch this one after class. Thank you for trying to hold him accountable. I'm disheartened by his lack of planning, informing us he was doing some reading last night. Yeah, I don't believe that, but yeah. Says, OMG, what's he been doing for the last 18 months? His talking points have shifted from 12% over 4 years now to 95% of teachers having a 17% increase. The numbers are not true. The government did not bargain fairly. The only reason our union brought the deals to us that they did was because the government wouldn't budge and they were compelled to bring it to their members. We've had a whole bunch of people say the reason that, they basically put that in front of teachers, that other offer that was voted down 90%, 89, what was it, 89.5%, 90%, says that was to trigger the strike. That's why they did it. Says this was not an overnight decision by this government, D says. The funds that we'll gain as teachers in retroactive pay have all been lost in the 3 weeks on strike. I believe it was calculated. The government's managed to non-negotiate teachers into a contract that provides the government with a zero-sum game. Says, I'd love to sit down and explain how I staff my school. Our classrooms are not large due to lack of space in our building. I staff my building based on funds available. If I had an unlimited number of rooms, I could not lower class size. The funding's just not there. And this doesn't account for complexity, which is bad in high school, but catastrophic in elementary school. The government keeps referring to the building of 130 new schools. Please let them know that schools don't educate students. In other words, talking about hiring teachers. I think that was one of the things that was good we drilled into with the minister yesterday. And I know everybody's talking about this Vashi Capellos interview, a good friend of the show.
Oh, yeah, that was
same deal there.
Yeah.
She asked it in a little bit more plain language. I asked him if he figures that, are they going to have a recruitment challenge? Does Alberta have a reputational damage to deal with after this strike? She basically says, respectfully, Minister, who would want to come work for you right now? But that's a big one, right? Alberta's got to hire 3,000 new teachers.
I know, it's true. And here's the thing, whether they're, correct me if I'm wrong, teachers are in the chat, but I've looked. There's about 2,500 schools across the province. Is that a correct number?
Let me quickly check.
It's about that. So let's say, just think of that. You're hiring 3,000 new teachers, and that's not even like immediately. That's over, what, 2 or 3 years?
2,266
okay.
K-12 schools in Alberta. That's a 2019 number. Let me find.
I'm pretty sure I saw a number saying it's around 2,500.
I'm going to find you a better one, yeah.
But let's say it's 22. Let's say it's 2,000. But you're hiring 3,000 teachers over 2 years, right? I think was the thing.
3,000 per year times 3 years. 3,000 over 3 years.
Okay. But we're also building how many? 400 or 500 new schools? Let's just call it
130.
130. Okay. Let's say it's 2,500 schools. Let's say you're hiring 3,000 teachers over 2 to 3 years. In my mind, that just equates to like less than 2 teachers per school. If you think of any school you go to right now that is overworked, understaffed, classes are big, the complexity is larger, more people are coming to those areas like Millwoods, the north side, wherever we're talking about, where more families are moving. It's not inexpensive, but
Less expensive.
The places where small families on smaller budgets live, and lots of kids are going to be coming into school zones. You can't tell me that one teacher or even two teachers put into a school is going to some way alleviate all the stress that's going on in a school. One teacher is not going to change any sort of dynamic going on in an overstressed, overcapacity school where, like Thomas said, the grade 12 students have no lockers and you know what I mean? Things like this. Even if you put 2 or 3 in each school, I don't see it happening. And over 3 years, every year there's going to be more and more students. So this whole thing about they keep saying 3,000 like it's a big number. It doesn't seem like a big number to me when you put it against how many schools there are.
2,518 K-12 schools in Alberta as of March 2025.
Yeah.
So that's a number to give you a sense of
like we
where
need
we're at.
in my mind we need 3 times. We need like 9,000 new teachers. Do we not? Am I wrong here, teachers? I don't know.
Are there 9,000 teachers?
There
that
aren't,
want
and
to
that's
move in
the
Alberta?
thing.
What
So,
about that
like-
email we got from Jillian in our October 29th episode? Jillian wrote us while she was at school first day back. She talked to us. You guys got to listen to it. Go back and check out the episode. In the show notes, if you're listening on the podcast or on YouTube, if it's live, we can't do this, obviously, because we don't know what time different discussions will begin at through the course of our 90 minutes or so. But if you read it later on YouTube or on the podcast, you'll find kind of minute markers that you can jump to different points in the conversation. And we do note Jillian's email. She writes about this little red book. It was kind of like her life game plan book. I don't remember the words she used. And she said that, it used to be like if things go sideways, they're moving to Ontario. She said she brought out that little red book yesterday for the first time in a long time. Teachers are thinking about leaving. So not only do you have an issue right now with the teachers that are currently employed in Alberta, but if you have, and some of you are going to go, they're not going to leave. They're among the highest paid in the country. They're pissed off right now, but they have steady employment and, they have bills to pay and Alberta could be worse. And, you're near the mountains and all these types of things, which may be true. But even if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% of your workforce be like, fuck it, we're out.
Yeah.
Then you've got a real problem on your hands when you already had an issue.
I'm not thinking of that. I'm thinking of teachers that are being grown, so to speak, right now. Like, I don't think kids in high school right now or college or when do you decide to be a teacher? I think it's before you apply to college or whatever, right? Like, usually when you're younger, you're like, I wouldn't mind doing this.
I think they have like job placement.
I don't
and they do
see
the interning.
people being like, yeah, teaching's a great job right now, especially in Alberta. So, yeah, I know when I say 9,000 teachers, it's like, where are they coming from?
Yeah.
But, like, that's why I think at the very least, you have to do both. Like, people are like, well, if you cap the class sizes, you wouldn't have to give them as much money. No, you have to pay the teachers well also because you need more people wanting to be teachers.
I love this from James. James says you could 100% get a railroad built across Canada right now because, and then in all caps, because we still build railroads. That from James, which is a good one. How about Jill, who says the province of Alberta didn't even exist when the railway was built. So Jill, I guess they would have built it through Northwest Territories, right? That's what I've got this old archive photo framed in our house. It's amazing. It's of the first public hospital in Alberta. And there's a horse and carriage in front. It's like this super cool photo and scratched into it. I guess the photographer must have scratched into the actual negative. I don't know how that would have worked, but it says Edmonton NWT. It's pretty cool.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a really neat. What am I looking for? Archive. I was going to combine vintage and archive. Jill wrote in on classroom complexity. Jespo, longtime listener, with you since Jason Kenney lit your radio career on fire. Thanks, Jill. Says, I appreciate the way that Real Talk dives deep into many important topics with a focus on local. Also, I appreciate your balanced take on politics. You're not shy about opinions, but you don't let personal politics lead the way. Thank you on that. Jill, thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate it. She says, I'm a mom to 2 young kids, daughter in grade 3, son going into kindergarten next year. And while I'm overjoyed that she's back in school, it's devastating to see teachers treated and gaslit like this. She says, I'm writing to you because I was listening to your latest interview, October 29th, the Minister of Education, Nicolaitis. In it, he mentioned that the new task force that he's touting will be solely focused on classroom complexity. It occurs to me that classroom complexity is another way to say difficult children. And he noted the number of kids with IPPs in these individual learning plans in classes a number of times. And I'm deeply nervous that those kids are going to be singled out as the main source of classroom complexity. She says, I'm so worried that the UCP's already determined what the task force is going to find and what they'll do with that information. I've spoken to my own MLA, and he's brought up the complexities and the difficult children that teachers face, and it strikes me that the UCP will take those complexities out of the classroom and put them into so-called complex schools. My daughter has an IPP. She loves school, her teachers, her classmates, but she can be a handful, and she requires some additional supports, and it terrifies me to think about what the UCP could be planning to do with classroom complexity. That from Jillian. This one from Megan, who says, Jespo, I'm writing you another email about education while listening to the Minister of Education. A lot of you are writing us as soon as these interviews begin. Says, when he's talking about complex needs in the classrooms, I'm really worried. As a parent to a child with Down syndrome in grade 7 in our wonderful rural school, this to me means exclusion and segregation. Take all the complex kids out of regular classrooms and put them somewhere else by themselves, right? Megan says our school has a class like this and had to cut it to 3 EAs last year, but the needs of students didn't change. Has the minister thought about how many classes are in Alberta? They can't look at each one individually. That's what the principal does. Increase funding per student to each school and support public education, chants Megan with a bunch of exclamation marks. She says the UCP is also indicating they don't care about people on AISH, PDD, as they have cut $200. She's talking about clawing back the federal disability benefit. Alberta is one of the only provinces, if not the only one, that's doing that. And they want to make people with significant disabilities go into the workforce. Says, there's rallies. They can expect rallies, including one today, the day we're talking on Thursday, the 30th, against the cuts that are being made. That from Megan. This one from LG. A bunch of people writing in and saying, hey, please keep me anonymous. They're like, I don't want to face fire in my workplace. I don't want to deal with the consequences of speaking out against this government. It's kind of also just an interesting trend that we're noticing. We'll always protect your anonymity. Pretty interesting, though, to see that as a recurring theme. Read into it what you will. LG says, Jespo, listen to the education minister on your show. My eyes nearly rolled right out of my head. If this government truly wants, quote, what's best for the kids, or that, quote, this strike is hurting kids, does he really think sending them back to the classrooms that were so unmanageable before, that teachers were willing to give up a month of salary to fight for, going back to these classrooms is what's best for kids? I would be comforted thinking that stomping on teachers' democratic rights were just temporary measures while the minister and his so-called task force get to the bottom of the complexity issues. But why not ask the teachers who know exactly what's going on already? Minister did say that he'll be involving teachers in the task force, which you would hope would be obvious. LG says, every time I think of government collaborating with teachers, like on that dumpster fire of curriculum, or if a teacher wants to act as the middleman to out trans kids to their parents or make girls sign gym forms about their gender. No, says LG. That was all thrust upon us with no discussion or interest in best outcomes whatsoever. And now using the notwithstanding clause will make sure that those pesky teachers who wouldn't play by the government's rules don't get to talk back for 4 more years. Clearly, it's more in the interest of this government to demonstrate to Albertans they care more about garnering power at all costs than listening to experts or their own constituents. Signed LG, a tired, fed up, former teacher, current parent, and never UCP voter. That from LG. People are fired up, man. People are all fired up.
LG, you need a hug, I can tell.
Well, I think a lot of people probably more feel like punching through a wall.
I know, people are... Oh, in our chat, especially over the last 3 or 4 days, I want to send people like an online Xanax or something. I don't know. It's like I just want people
chamomile tea.
Take it down a notch here. We're all angry.
You know what though?
We get more accomplished when we kind of.
Well, I think that more people. We got an email and it'll be read in the Flamethrower tomorrow, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Shore Park. Tomorrow's Flamethrower is going to be legendary.
It's crazy.
On the 31st of October.
How do we even choose?
Well, I'm doing something different because we try to have people. Real talkers, give us your feedback on this. I've been thinking, like, strategically for content creation, don't roll your eyes. Just listen to me for a second. Just bear with me here. A lot of people will point out that if Flamethrower is like 90 seconds or like a tight 2 minutes, more people might check it out. It's already our most downloaded content of the week. Like, the Flamethrower is downloaded on the podcast more than any episode is downloaded on the podcast, for the most part. People love it. But it ends up being 6 or 7 minutes because we want to get like 5, 6, 7, 8 submissions. And then you want to read the full email because people are putting time into it and they're pouring their hearts out. But some folks have said, just take quick hits from each one. Just take like the best 3 lines from each one.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably what we're going to have to do on the 31st of October because there's like, I don't know, 400 submissions probably.
But some of them you want to hear the full context of what they're saying. But yeah, I agree that like now We're just getting so many more, like with everything going on in the province and the country and elections and all this, that, yeah, I think we might have to maybe we'll just start putting fonts up on the screen that are like, here's the three main points.
These are the three main
points. You can just scream them and,
We'll just throw them all into ChatGPT and say, summarize the most explosive content.
The Coles notes of the flamethrower.
Alberta Girl says classroom complexity. This is in our live chat powered by Park Power. Classroom complexity was the reason I chose to homeschool, says Alberta Girl, when I was in school. Here were special ed classes for complex needs, even accelerated classes, but there doesn't seem to be anything like that anymore. Vamp Fashion says, I find it fascinating. Y'all are still so passionate, and this is merely the opening round of public sector union strikes. The nurses will be next with outrageous demands, says Vamp Fashions. Tommy says, Alberta is still the best province to live in. I didn't think I would say this. Are you ready? Tommy, I agree with you.
Oh, jeez.
Whoa! Miss Katie says, my son had an IPP, that's an individualized program plan, had an IPP for a neurological fine motor disorder. He can't write or print as fast as his brain moves. So he was at a disadvantage in timed testing. So he needed a scribe or he needed a computer. Miss Katie giving us a sense of what that looks like at an individual level. Shelley wrote into the show, talk@ryanjesperson.com. Jespo, Johnny, thank you for your podcast. Thank you for sharing a variety of viewpoints. I truly do enjoy listening and learning. Full disclosure, says Shelley, I'm a teacher. I'm listening to your show tonight. She sent this to us at 11:35 p.m., just before midnight. She sent it to us like 10 hours ago. And I'm yelling responses back to the Minister of Education on your show. I want to point out something that he and this government in general seem to keep gaslighting us on. Yes, Alberta had a world-recognized education system. We no longer do. He mentions these PISA results, which grade 10 students, right? The government's quick, short-sighted, and poorly redesigned elementary and middle school curriculums missed those grade 10 students who just wrote. So the next time that we write a PISA test, says Shelley, I suspect that our results may not be as praiseworthy. Says take some time to explore the grade 6 PAT results, PAT on the new curriculums. What about all the assessments they insist that the assessments for K-3 teachers to complete? Those are showing up that students aren't at grade level, but the government still won't provide funding to help our schools. And he only started reading what other provinces are doing for class caps last night. This is what my wife was on me for. What has he been doing for the past 18 months? I don't believe for a second. I don't know if that was like a slip of his, or I don't know if he was trying to come across as like anecdotal or a storytelling thing, or like sort of a human response. I was laying in bed and I was reading this.
He's smart, though, so I was like, maybe he wants to smoke. Maybe he wants you to ask him something and then he counters. I didn't get it either because it was weird. Very obvious.
Shelley says, another task force? I can't wait. Says, thanks for asking the hard questions, bringing in all perspectives. Thanks for always keeping it real. She says, I wanted to share my thoughts with you instead of yelling at my phone. I'm just frustrated that he keeps saying world class. He doesn't get to hang his hat on the hard work of decades of teachers and a school system funded properly. He and his government have destroyed that, and they need to own it. That from Shelley. So there's another one. Here's what we'll do. Why don't we take a second to focus on something super positive and encouraging? How about that? I love this. And the timing of this, I'm really appreciative of this Thursday because I do love Alberta. We're proud to be from Alberta, and Alberta sees a lot of wins amid a lot of the controversy, right? Every Thursday, in partnership with our friends at Play Alberta, we present Alberta Wins. This is a story of Albertans making big impacts in the world around them. If human beings were symphonies, Dr. David Wishart would be the conductor, tuning into every note, every molecule to understand how the whole piece comes together. Dr. Wishart is a Métis scientist that was born right here in Alberta's capital city in Edmonton, and he has just won Canada's top science honor. This is the Gerhard Herzberg Gold Medal for Science and Engineering for his groundbreaking work in something called metabolomics. I'm probably saying it wrong, John. I'm not even smart enough to... Metabolomics. That's the science of studying all of the tiny, tiny molecules flowing through our bodies. Molecules that can reveal how we live, what we eat, even what diseases might be developing before symptoms even appear. Okay, so this is major stuff. Dr. Wishart's curiosity started early. His dad was a wildlife biologist. His mom was a naturalist. And his backyard, the Alberta Badlands, doubled as a fossil field for a kid obsessed with dinosaurs, a southern Alberta kid. He actually found the toe bone of a duck-billed dinosaur when he was a kid. Not bad for a junior scientist in training. So he went to the U of A earning his physics degree, and then he earned his PhD from a school. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this small little school called Yale, but after he came back with his Yale PhD, Dr. Wishart returned to Alberta and helped invent an entire field. So people were mapping the human genome, and he was going, well, what about all the other stuff? And so that led to the creation of the Human Metabolome Database, a massive online library of more than 200,000 molecules. Scientists are using it, Johnny, in 190 countries. And colleagues report that they rarely go a week without using one of Dr. Wishart's tools or databases. But he's kept his research open and collaborative, right? He's not trying to get loaded rich on this. He believes that sharing the knowledge makes everybody better off. Kind of reminds me of the polio vaccine developed right here in Canada. So he's going to receive a gold medal. He gets a research grant. It's not money in his pockets. He gets a $1 million research grant from Ottawa on November 5th. How about that? From the Alberta Badlands to the forefront of world science. That is an Alberta win. Alberta Wins is presented weekly on Real Talk by our friends at Play Alberta, where 100% of proceeds stay right here in our province. If you're looking to wager on the Oilers and the Rangers tonight, don't forget that Real Talkers with the promo code Ryan50 will get a $50 free deposit with a $50 deposit. A $50 free bet with a $50 deposit as long as you use the promo code Ryan50. You can learn more at playalberta.ca or use the Play Alberta app. That's Ryan50, Ryan50, all one word. You must be 18 or over to play. And if you gamble, please use your game sense. You need your own music show. That's what I'm learning. I'm bringing more to the table. You got your education minister theme song. You got your country backgrounds. Johnny Infamous, the intrepid producer of this show.
I have enough of a music show every weekend when I go out into the wild.
No kidding. You got any big DJ gigs coming up this weekend?
I got my last wedding of the season. Finally, we're capping off 2025.
How many weddings would you say you DJ'd this summer?
This year I went down. Last year was about 30, 35. This year I went down to 22 or something like that.
Lucky couples.
Lucky. Hey, it's getting harder to get. Go to
getting harder to book. Don't even do it. You got to pay for it if you want to do it.
I'm just kidding. But now it's next year. I didn't book any in April and May, which I usually do. So I got a nice little break here from November 1st all the way to June. So,
you deserve it. Yeah. Kyle wrote into the show. His subject line grabbed our attention. Talk at RyanJesperson.com. I'm always curious when I get an email at 7:35 in the morning and there's been a lot of thought put into it. Did he write it last night and sleep on it, decide if he wanted to send it, or did he write it at 5 in the morning? Kyle, hypocrisy in Alberta's future reads the subject line, says, my friend, it's been a while since I've written into the show, but what's been happening here in Alberta with the teachers union has me all fired up. I've thought long and hard about it, and the word that keeps coming to mind, says Kyle, is hypocrisy. Says, my brother-in-law is a teacher. My mother-in-law is a retired teacher. Both are incredibly caring, dedicated people. They've poured their hearts into their work. I've seen it firsthand, leaving family vacations early to prep classrooms, spending their own money on supplies, working through the summer to get ready for the next year. You've heard stories like that before, but it hits differently when it's your own family, says Kyle. I'm a father of 2. Kids are 6 and 4. My wife is an LPN, a nurse, who, let's be honest, says Kyle, earmuffs kids, let's be honest, is probably going to get fucked in the next round of negotiations with the province. I've been see, that's what I mean, this ripple effect. Everybody's starting to feel it, right? Or at least a lot of people are. Says, I've been lucky enough to volunteer in my kids' school. That really opened my eyes. I remember sitting in class one day when the teacher was trying to read a story. 3 kids just wandering around the room, interrupting, walking right up to her face, total chaos. And the rest of the kids just sat there because they're used to it. That was just an hour of my day. She does this for 6 or more. Then I went to a parent council meeting. The first agenda item list was a request from the Teachers Council asking for $10 per student to cover basic supplies like paper and printing. The money would come from the Parent Council's fundraising, which was supposed to go toward a new playground. And both of these hit me hard as a new parent. It showed me how broken things are inside our schools. Kyle says, I'm a realtor, and the strike has definitely slowed the market, right? Just like you were talking about the other day. He says, by the way, for the last year and a half, every single person my colleagues and I have helped move to Alberta has been from another province, not overseas. Kind of countering that narrative that you were hearing from the education minister. He says, I'll admit I'm a capitalist through and through, says Kyle, but I like to think I have a socialist heart. especially when it comes to education, healthcare, and our seniors. Those three areas should always get the most care, attention, and funding, and there's room for private options, sure, but not at the expense of the public systems that hold our communities together. During our last municipal election, Jespo, safety was a big issue. In the provincial one, it was healthcare. And we both know systems are struggling, but the truth is there's only one real fix, and that is education. Kyle says we'll never be able to out-police our problems, which are rooted in mental health, and we'll never be able to out-healthcare them either. The budgets keep growing every year because we're not addressing the root cause, which is education. That's our only real chance as a society. Before a kid grows up lost and angry and forgotten, the classroom's often the one place that a child can believe that they can be more than what they see around them. It's where someone might finally say, "You matter." And that's how you break cycles. Prevention is the best medicine. If we take care of our education system, the rest will start to take care of itself. Give teachers what they need. Give them more than what they need. And watch that investment pay off in a thriving society, a stronger workforce, healthier people, fewer kids falling through the cracks. That's not just compassion, he says. That's smart economics, and it's smart conservatism. Investing in education isn't a left or a right issue. It's about protecting the foundations that make Alberta strong: self-reliance, opportunity, community. The same values that conservatives say they stand for: hard work, responsibility, efficiency, all start in a well-supported classroom. Now, our so-called moral high ground, this leadership with the provincial government, is crushing that spirit, not just breaking a system, but breaking the people who are trying their best with what little they have. They've not only stripped teachers of their right to strike, but they're taking away their rights, period. Does that sound like Alberta, the land of the free? He says this is hypocrisy at its finest. What a lesson we're teaching our kids in real time. Kyle says the sad part is I saw this coming. I should have written this months ago because it was obvious that this was the government's plan all along. But the teachers union bears some blame too. They should have seen this coming 18 months ago and called it out publicly. Instead, they tried to play checkers against an opponent playing chess. And by the time they realized it, the game was already over. And that's why government waited till the fall session. He says this wasn't a reaction, it was a strategy. The notwithstanding clause was baked into the plan from day one. The letters, the talking points, the optics. The Premier had flights and hotels booked before the vote even happened. The plan was executed perfectly. Pour a glass of wine, declare victory, and jet off to the real oil country she dreams of joining. It shows exactly how she feels about Alberta's teachers and students. Disposable. And what really blows my mind, says Kyle, is the hypocrisy from her supporters. The same people who shouted freedom during the convoy protests are now perfectly fine with taking away the rights of teachers. The logic, well, the Liberals did it to us, so I guess now we get to do it to everybody we don't like. Kyle says it's childish. Freedom isn't something you defend when it's convenient. That's not how democracy works. As for these separatist wannabes that you were talking about on the show, let's be honest. This government can't balance a budget or work with healthcare, education, or pretty much anybody else they deal with. How exactly would Alberta be better off separated? Right, because we wouldn't have to send transfer payments. That only works if oil prices stay high. That's hardly a long-term plan. This Premier's a one-trick pony, betting Alberta's future on oil prices. Might as well take it all to the casino. Put it down on red. I believe Wesley Snipes advised you do the exact opposite and always bet on black. And the last thing, says Kyle, that really pisses me off, Maple MAGA. Danielle Smith is a copycat of her idol, Donald Trump, always preaching the moral high ground, creating chaos wherever she can, pitting Albertans against each other, blaming the Liberals, blaming the NDP. But don't worry, if you're a non-vaxxer, a separatist, a racist, or a queer phobe, you're in the clear. He says, I was forced to listen to a radio show back in the day thanks to you taking days off, Jesperson. Hey, and it made me sick. The smug, I know better tone. Now it's the same act, just with more power behind the microphone. He says, that's enough for me to say right now. I'm sure the next round of UCP overreach is right around the corner because just like Trump, there's always another wave of chaos waiting. Kyle says, thanks for giving everyday Albertans a place to share their voice. That from Kyle. That was a big one.
Yeah, I think that was a late night email. I really like parts of that. Some other parts are a little. I won't say fear mongering, but I really did.
What was one where you're
near
not
the
so
end,
sure?
Near the end there,
kind
kind of trailed off. I do think no matter what you think of Danielle Smith, she's a proud Albertan and she loves Canada. And I think any weighing into separatist talk and being a 51st state is just. Some votes she'd like to take and people she'd like to keep in her corner. I don't believe that deep down she wants to separate from Canada and all that other stuff. I will say there were parts of that he absolutely nailed, and it is hard when the Premier jumps on a plane. You even said it was surprising that she left right after this came down. It does seem kind of, lined up to a schedule. So.
I just think like if you want to, I don't know. I mean, I'm not comparing
you got to
it
stay
to
and fight the fires. You can't
Aloha
just
Gate,
bail, right?
But
kind of
like
thing.
if you want people to believe that this is something that you're taking seriously, not something that you're doing lightly, then I think you stick around and face the fire a little bit, right? And people will say, well, she's attending this thing, or it's a global event, or she's got it, her schedule's inflexible. I don't know. You just like dropped a pretty big bomb, and I think that it would just say a lot to people. There's kind of two elements. Well, there's a million elements to politics, but like number one is like the strategy and the rollout, which is big, and like political tacticians make great livings understanding the best ways to get things done, to like roll out policy in a way that it appears to be innocuous or that's inflammatory, if that's the better fit, and whipping votes and like everything that happens behind the scenes, the political strategy. And sometimes we'll bring guests on to talk about that because it can be fascinating. It can also be boring, and you get in the weeds, and only the geeks and nerds like us care about it. And then there's the public-facing stuff, right? Like you might describe it as like the glad handing, the shoulder rubbing, the baby kissing, the stuff that politicians do to convince you that they're just like you, that they understand what your struggle is like, that they share your concerns, and that they will represent your concerns in their legislation or in their advocacy or in their opposition or whatever the case may be. And in that context, that's what I thought taken off to Saudi Arabia, like right after, posting photos, drinking glasses of wine, if the story's true about smoking a brisket outside at midnight, that stuff just optically, you got to wonder about it, right? Now, if trolling is on purpose, and if you're doing it to smirk and laugh, if you're doing it to make your base chuckle, then that is a strategy in itself. But I don't know. When you're talking about kids and education, it's like education and healthcare, senior supports. I would include from Kyle's email.
These
there.
are like the top.
People with disabilities.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess around with the optics of it because you can come across as lacking empathy, and that can be a death knell for a politician.
And it just seems like it's like a red flag to me. Like because people are going to want to ask questions the day after you do something like this, and to not be around to get asked questions is very, very convenient.
Yeah. Super Chat Ken says, personally, I think Johnny's being pretty generous. Says, I believe that Danielle Smith does Alberta, but does love Alberta, he says, but not Canada. Her chief of staff literally co-wrote the Free Alberta strategy. Yeah, I mean, his Twitter handle is Free Alberta Rob, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know. Some people, when they say something publicly, you believe that is like their, what did they say? Their heart's desire. That is the true leading of their heart. That's their true conviction. And other people,
and maybe
in particular politicians, but also people, professional sports managers, people that have to have like a poker face or that have to remain coy. You got to kind of take everything they say with a grain of salt. I don't know if I personally believe that Danielle Smith, likes to see Alberta in Canada. I know that, her predecessor, Jason Kenney, sure as hell believes that, his Canada includes Alberta.
Sure.
But you also look at, I don't know. I can put two and two together. I can draw lines between dots, and I take a look at some of the opposition that we'll get, or some of the pushback on social media, or some of the comments, the less gracious comments that we'll get. Anytime we talk about separation, and like there are some common themes there. And I think if you took a look at that Alberta separatist rally, what did they call it? We Are Alberta, or I Am Alberta, or something like that. I Am Albertan. That rally at the legislature that had a few thousand people out there the other day waving the Alberta flag, calling for Alberta to leave Canada. If you ask them how they all voted, there'd probably be a pretty common theme.
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
I agree with you. And you know what? There's times where I say things and then I rethink them. I will say this. I know the Premier loves Alberta, and that's from, even with the Jasper wildfires, we saw real emotion from her. Like, she loves this province. She loves the people in it. I don't think she wants to be part of the United States, but maybe you're right. Maybe she does believe in a free and strong and separate Alberta. But I to everything she says, it's to the contrary, right? But I do see keeping those people in your corner as a benefit.
Dubious says, Jespo, you got to verbally invite this guy to join the chat.
Oh, the Kyle?
He's talking about Kyle. Someone else says, we haven't heard enough. Michael says, what a great email from Kyle. Emily responds and says, I don't think that the government was playing chess through all this. They were the pigeons shitting all over the board and declaring victory. Man, pigeons. That's one of the greatest insults of all. You just call someone's driving you crazy, you just call them a pigeon.
Yeah, it's
a
like,
good one.
hey, man, I don't mind
Absolute
pigeons.
pigeon. That's our buddy Biz that
They're
goes with
kind
that.
of cute. They're part of New York City's overarching quality around Christmas time.
Yeah. I'm not
The
sold on pigeons.
pigeon lady from Home Alone?
Well, yes,
She
of
made
course,
us love
she
the
was very
pigeons.
special, but pigeons are just, well, whatever. I'm not going to get off. Once I start talking about this, everyone's going to bring up Mike Tyson, and the one bit of humanity that anyone ever saw from
Have
Mike
you
Tyson
seen-
was when he keeps his pigeons, and he's got
Not
this
just,
whole.
have you seen his backyard lately?
It's wild. Well, no, I haven't.
Now
No.
that he's more like, obviously he's retired. Like he's not, he's not as in since the Jake Paul fight. He has got peacocks, he's got an entire zoo in his backyard, and it's all birds. And he's out there like, hey guys, let's go. Like he's talking. He's like, they're all his buddies now. It's wild to watch. He's retiring into a bird sanctuary.
I'm just taking a look here. You can check this out. Here's Mike Tyson showing off his exotic birds. This video, courtesy
Look
of
at how many are in the
Fight
background.
Hub.
Like his backyard is just full of cages and dwellings for these birds. And
Different strokes for different folks, man.
you know what? I think
Good for Iron
when
Mike.
when I see it, I see a very, his mind was like chaotic his whole career, right?
Yeah.
He was, he went through drug addiction and abuse scandals, and he got hit in the head a million times. He seemed like he was crazy at certain points. I think this is somehow like this is calming the dude, in his older age. It's just centering him. He just goes out, he looks at his birds, he's one with nature, and it's just kind of like, I think it's just giving him a sense of peace. But it is wild. If you go search Mike Tyson's bird sanctuary, the pictures are
Okay, I
just
will.
like peacocks and like all these rare birds, and like he's out there like, hey guys, who wants a bird season? It's just fun. It's
Your
so
Tyson
cute.
impression
It's
is
so
incredible. I love this.
cute.
Well,
Yeah. This video is great.
This is
Like,
called
yeah,
Rolling with
look at
Tyson.
his face.
I did not have chatting about Mike Tyson on our bingo card today.
Just his face watching these birds is like, it's just, he's so like just enamored. He's just so heartwarming to see a guy who was like, I don't know. I'm not saying everything Mike Tyson's done is good or anything like that.
Of course not.
I'm just saying, like, it seems like this guy had a chaotic mind, and these birds have somehow brought him back to earth.
Huh.
Look at this.
I got to share an update with you on Supriya Dwivedi, something that she talked to us about on Monday, and I wanted to share that with Real Talkers because I think that it's timely. And we also have another bit of ground to cover that I think is really important. But before we do, I have to remind you that California Closets is presenting our live stream every single episode, which means on 7 different social media platforms you can watch the show starting at 8:30 Mountain Time. So that means you can watch us on X, you can watch us on Facebook. If you follow me on Facebook, you can catch us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok. You can find us on YouTube. Thanks to everybody that's subscribed on YouTube. I think we're coming up on 500 subscribers this month. It would be awesome if we could get to that mile marker. It just notifies you when the show's live or when we have new content. And you can find us on the Mixlr live streaming audio app as well. That's courtesy of California Closets. The best in the business, this Canadian-owned company is, with custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. We love our California Closets installations. They were designed and installed in 2017, 8 years ago, you guys. They look incredible. They look just as good today as they did the day that they went in. And of course, you guys know we're not rich. I didn't roll in there with like $300,000 to spend. We didn't have that. We're a regular middle-class family, and California Closets worked with our budget as first-time customers to deliver exactly what we asked for. They have 4 different levels of installation, which means they can work with your budget too. They can work with any space and everything they install, made in Alberta and guaranteed for life. You can request your free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. North Road Investment Council has a message for successful business owners, not just in the province of Alberta, but across Canada. They're talking to those that are 40 years of age or older and that are making $200,000 or more about this IPP, which they say your investment advisor may not even be mentioning to you. This is this individualized pension plan. It can be a strategic retirement tool, but it's not for everybody. And that's why the team at North Road has put together a clear language white paper to talk to you about the benefits and maybe the risks. It's not guaranteed to be a fit. The risks of the IPP. All of this acknowledging life's financial journey doesn't always follow a straight path. That's why you need credible industry-leading voices at North Road Investment Council to ensure your family, your business is set up for long-term success. Connect with them today and ask for that IPP white paper at northroadic.com. Johnny, we got to give a shout out. We're going to do it every single show. We love these guys. UCAN Youth Services, our charity of choice this year, helping young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. If you happen to be driving past their new location, if you happen to be in downtown Edmonton, I drive past it every single day. They got these beautiful new posters up. They barely moved in. They are already improving the curb appeal and sending the message that you can earn while you learn. If you're a young person, or if you know a young person, 17 to 24, that's running with the wrong crowd, that's basically been denied opportunity, or maybe they found themselves in a jam. Maybe it's their fault. Maybe it's through no fault of their own. The team at UCAN doesn't judge. The team at UCAN sets up these young people for success, transitioning back into school, transitioning into entry-level employment, and they do that through a couple of work readiness programs, employment readiness programs. They're about 8 weeks. You're paid while you participate. And then employers who are looking for reliable, skilled, motivated young people work with UCAN to fill those employment openings. It's an incredible opportunity. If this has resonated with you in any way, you know the young person, you're an employer, maybe you're a donor, and you want to support what UCAN's doing, you can always check out their website, ucan.ca. So the Toronto Blue Jays have one more win to go. They're headed back to Toronto for the final 1 or 2 games, we'll see, of the World Series against Los Angeles Dodgers. Everybody knows this, I'm pretty sure. Supriya Dwivedi joins us the first Monday of every week, and we were grinding her gears just the tiniest little bit in fun in our most recent episode about jumping on the bandwagon. She says, are we really going to talk about baseball? She says, I don't know a lot about baseball. She says, but what I do know is that the city is going absolutely nuts right now. And so she said, I'm on the bandwagon. Count me in. And this from a born and raised Montreal girl, right? Montreal Expos leaving. That was probably, I would imagine, tough for everybody in Montreal. She was joking with us about how some Montrealers, some Quebecers are still not over the Expos leaving to Washington, D.C., and they're having a hard time with the Jays' success this year, as the Expos were robbed of that World Series in 1994. Sure. Well, I've just received an update, John, and she says, so you know how I told you and Johnny and Real Talkers that I know nothing about baseball? Earmuffs, kids, by the way. But I've jumped on the bandwagon. She says, well, when I hop on a bandwagon, I hop the fuck on. Supriya Dwivedi has secured tickets. Oh. To the next Jays-Dodgers game.
Let's go.
At Rogers Center. She says,
go.
on Monday, she says, add this to the list of what we're going to be talking about on Monday. Supriya will be in the house. Do baseball fans say in the barn, or is that just a hockey reference? It's just a hockey reference. She will be in the stadium. You think the Jays can do it in Game 6? You think this is going 7? I initially said 7.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a big question mark around my head, and it was all weighing on Ohtani and guys like Freeman and all these other guys who just destroy baseballs and hit them out of the park. But man, the Jays are formidable, and if we haven't seen in the last 2 games, looking like the better team.
They are,
and they have resolve. They hold a lead in the last 2 games, which has made you had an 18-inning game, and then now it's been kind of boring, but. Hey, man, that's baseball. You get a lead, you hold it, you keep them off the bases, and that's what they've been doing. But I would never say never that this thing doesn't go all the way to 7. And it's looking like the home team is not doing well. And now here we go. We head back to Toronto for 2 games. So you never know what's going to happen. But I also can't. It's not out of the realm of possibility that this thing is over on Friday. What I am going to bring up here is Halloween canceled, dude? Like, is it over? Because, like, when there's an Oilers game on Halloween, you have, like, the dads who pull it out to the garage and they sit there with the candy, or, like, they're sitting in the window looking out and there's just a bowl with a sign sitting on the porch that says, take one, I'm watching the game, sorry.
And then there's the one kid that takes all the candy.
And they're just kind of keeping an eye on it. This is way different. This is across the country. World Series hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
This is stirring up memories of Joe Carter and it's going over generations. You've got grandma, grandpa, you've got mom, dad, you've got cousin. Everyone's watching. So, like, is Halloween canceled on Friday? Are we even going out? Because this could be. You don't want to be watching reruns of this. You don't want to be watching highlights. You want to be there. You want to see it with the last strike, the last catch, the last home run, the last whatever, run batted in. You want to be there live when it happens if they win the World Series Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping desperately, and we'll figure out a way to have that game on Friday for Halloween. I think maybe just even a laptop streaming it out front of our house. We're going to go for the first time this year with the front yard fire. We're going to have a little fire crackling in our front yard, which I think will be kind of a cool, maybe I'll be able to tell you more about the logic behind that later. But we'll probably have the Jays game going on the laptop. What I'm really hoping is that it doesn't go to 7. And I wouldn't normally talk like this about something that I'm participating in, but I'm so proud to be hosting the Evening of Hope Saturday night in Edmonton for Hope International, an incredible NGO. I'm showing it right now on my screen. People can check out hope-international.com. They're celebrating 50 years, and they have raised and deployed millions of dollars all around the world in developing nations, creating incredible opportunities for families. This is at the Edmonton Convention Center, Saturday, November 1st. You can still get tickets. Actually, what you're going to find out on this one, this event is really interesting, Johnny. The tickets, there's no charge. So people commit. People commit to attending the event. It's going to be at the Edmonton Convention Center. It's going to be an incredible event. And then you get to watch a short documentary on some of the work that Hope is doing. There's a live auction. There's a silent auction. And then at the end, they're just going to ask basically, like, based on your experience here, having dinner and learning what you've learned about the organization, would you consider making a donation? It's like a really gutsy way to fundraise, but I've been working with them for a few years now, and I have seen Edmontonians, and I host their event in Vancouver as well at the Vancouver Convention Center. People just are so moved by the work that they're doing, and the donations are remarkable. And 50 years of hope. We'll be celebrating hope-international.com. You can check out /Edmonton if you want to get right to the event. That's Saturday, November 1st, which would be Game 7. And Game 7 of the World Series is not what you want happening when you want people captivated in a convention center focusing on global issues. So we'll probably have to have the documentary on one screen and Game 7 on the other, although that may be counterproductive to the bigger message. I think the Jays can do it in 6. Let's go.
I think they can too. I just said it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I also see like it's been back and forth in this series. So I don't believe that the Dodgers can't win Game 6. I don't believe that. I wish this 7 was on Sunday, though. I'm in the same boat as you. I got my last wedding on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I got to bug the couple to put it on a projector. Am I watching on my phone while I'm DJing? I got to, so I feel like it would be a nice wrap up on Friday. You take the kids out for a little trick or treating. You come home, you watch the last inning.
Yeah.
Vladdy, top deck. Let's
go.
It's over. Clean it up. Let's have a nice Saturday. Let's start November.
If there's a homer to win it, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Well, here's the thing.
But a guy can dream. I want it. You know who I want to hit the winning homer?
Yeah.
In extra innings, walk off, Alejandro Kirk. He's my new favorite professional
Oompa
athlete.
Loompa guy.
He's my new favorite pro athlete, period.
But here's the thing. Most World Series, especially the last 3-4 years, you always kind of know who's going to win, right?
Yes.
Like baseball is a very numbers calculated, by the book game. So you usually know. This year, you don't know who's going to win. They are very closely matched. Nobody thought the Jays would come this far because the Dodgers are such they're a star team, right? They got the money, they got the big stars. But now you're like, oh my God, this could go either way, right? The Jays could win. But here's the thing. I think the potential for it to end in a home run is so much larger because you have so many big bats on both sides. You've got Vladdy. You've got Kirk who can pull one out of his butt.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, at any time. You've got Ohtani. You've got Freeman. You've got these other guys. Every guy in the Dodgers could slam one home, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I really think there's a chance for this to end in a home run. Or Have you seen this amount of 2-run, 3-run grand slams in a World Series ever?
It's been a wild series.
Crazy,
It's been a wild run. I love this from Cactus Sheriff. I will be watching spooky movies on Halloween, not friggin' sports. That from Cactus Sheriff.
Okay, it's a little different than friggin' sports. This is the other thing was like when you were talking to start this off bandwagon. It's not really a bandwagon. It's like cheering for Team Canada in the Olympics or the World Juniors.
There's
we only have one team.
Yeah, you didn't suffer with them through like 30 years. That doesn't mean you can't cheer for them now, right?
That's true.
On Halloween, Kent Kay says that he's going to be setting up a TV, a beer cooler, and a propane-powered fire pit in the front yard. Nicely done. Emily G says Halloween is definitely not canceled. Aaron says that they have neighbors that have a front yard fire every year. Says it's absolutely awesome. Mindy says just have the game on the side of your house. Get a projector. Mindy's absolutely right. Like you can do this. I'm not sure their quality. Johnny's more the AV, the tech guy here. But you can get these like little mini projectors. They may not last your whole life. You can get them on Amazon next day for like $40. The
ones you can get now, like 4K, $80.
Yeah.
They connect to Wi-Fi, like outside your house. You just run your internet. You put a USB in the back. It plays your Netflix or whatever, or your Telus or your Shaw or whatever. Yeah, they're incredible for the price.
This is great from Ken. Saw a great quote. Parents, Halloween ends at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Friday, and if your kids come after that, I'm giving them chewing tobacco. That's a great one from Ken. Cheryl outside says, here's a Halloween everyone will enjoy. Cast the game onto a white cloth on your front yard. Draw a couple of eyes at the top of the cloth. Boo! She says, you've got a ghost. You got the game going. How about that? I love that. Ken says Ryan will be having his own evening of hope on Friday, hoping the Jays win and there's no Saturday game.
Hey.
That's 100%.
That's right.
100% what's going to happen. Absolutely. Cactus Sheriff, listen to this. If the rest of the show is going to be all sports, then I'm going to bounce. I got better things to do than talk about millionaires playing games for billionaires. Have fun, y'all. Cactus Sheriff, we love you. Not every subject is for everybody, but it is the World Series, and a Canadian team is close to clinching. Sorry, not sorry.
What's going on here?
It's okay. It's okay. It's like sometimes you can go into a Michelin star restaurant and they bring you something and you go, it's not for me. Totally fine.
Listen.
You can reserve the right to decline to watch every single second.
Well, here's the thing, like even like my partner hates sports. She does not give a crap about whether the Oilers are going to the playoffs, whether, there's certain things like basketball and other things where she's like, I'm not going to give a second of my life to this. She's still going to, like Friday, it's the World Series. It's a big thing for Canada. She's still going to watch. You know what I mean? Her favorite part is every intermission or halftime show or the Super Bowl halftime performance. She's like, they need more of that. I agree, though. I will say this, and this isn't a slight against Canada.
Oh, wow.
But there have been some questionable entertainment value around the Rogers Center is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Skydome, I will never call it Rogers Center and not say Skydome afterwards. I grew up with the Skydome. It was like when it became a part of the fabric of Toronto.
Yeah, it's old school Toronto.
It's incredible. But like some of these performances, the JP Sachs, I don't know if you saw this performance. He's the guy who sang the anthem at the last game. He's questionable.
No bueno?
No, not bueno, man.
Who would you have liked to see? Don't say Rush. Don't say Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Hey, here's another thing. Rush. I love Rush. I listen to Rush. I think they're an incredible cultural fabric of Canada as well.
They're fine.
But like, man, tying in the whole introduction for the Blue Jays, like the whole production on the broadcast to a song from that long ago, and now I'm going to get the comments coming.
You are going to get
like,
ripped.
Let's update it, man. Let's do some,
Drake.
Not necessarily he's tied, but there's a ton of other amazing Canadian artists and music that could have been tied in to a montage. I mean,
you saw Drake wearing the Don Bosco Rob Ford football jacket.
That was crazy.
That is crazy. That's like the legit, as far as I can tell, unless they maybe did a replica. But I think
they did a replica.
It's got to
be
because
it's the same. It's the same.
It has like Rob Ford on the front.
But yeah, like let's like there's kids who are. How old's Wyatt?
10.
Do you think he knows who? Okay, actually, Wyatt's really up on music, so that's a bad. But do you think that he cares about Rush or kids that age? You know what I mean? Like, let's tie in something for them.
I 100% agree. Nice to see Nev in our live chat, powered by Park Power. Says, "Whoa, nice setup, guys." We found. He says, "I just found Real Talk in a shorts algorithm." So he saw one of our shorts. They saw one of our shorts, clicked on us. Now on the live stream, says, "I'm just here to follow the UCP strike story." Nev, welcome. Awesome to have you here. Go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we hope to have you back. You'll find that you'll make some friendships. You may even make some enemies in our Real Talk live chat. We hope that checking out the show, subscribing to the show, and spending some time with us through the week will make you smarter or more well-informed about the world around you. Not because the host or the producer, respectfully, but because of the incredible top-shelf guests we bring on. Got this one from Colin here. Colin also sent us an email. Johnny, this meant a lot to us. He says, Jespo, it's been a while. He says, I first met you during your days at City TV. I was hosting breakfast televisions. This was a while ago. Wow. Says he came in with Alex Tagliani. I remember that interview. One of the great Canadian auto racers and one of the great drivers. Says, I had no idea that we had so many mutual friends that I would discover over the years. He says, I tuned into Real Talk for the first time September 10th during your interview with the Prime Minister, with Mark Carney. Says it was absolutely awesome. Colin says, Mr. Carney is absolutely the right man to lead our country. He says, I'm a lifelong conservative, but I don't recognize what conservatism has become in Alberta, in Canada, or even in places like the United States. And here's what Colin wrote in this email that honestly meant the world to me. Candidly, Jespo, I stayed away from your show for a long time thinking that it was just a vehicle to bash conservatism. And it turns out you just saw what was happening a lot earlier than I did.
Whoa!
He says, keep up the good work. I'll tune in whenever I can. Amazing email from Colin. Yeah. Made my day, Colin. And I love seeing Nev and other new joiners here in our live chat. Before we go, and Johnny, you can go ahead and give me the music. I'm going to wrap here. We'll let you know that our Friday Roundtable, it's coming up next. We're going to meet at the intersection of the environment and the economy. It's going to be a great roundtable you won't want to miss. And, of course, the flamethrower is going to be an all-timer. Your responses to the Notwithstanding Clause, the teacher strike, and more. And a reminder from our friends at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. We present Echoes of the Alex every Tuesday. These are stories of real talkers whose lives have been changed by interactions at that hospital. We want to hear yours. Send us your Echoes of the Alex to talk@ryanjesperson.com.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton, member emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.